What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to my good brother. He is the perennial host of the And Now We Drink podcast, found wherever you can find your podcast from. He's the one, the only, Matt Slayer. Matt, what's going on, bro?
Not much, Adam. What the fuck's going on? You got me out of bed early. Like,
wow. Really? Like
sunlight and shit? Like what? I don't normally get on mic during sunlight.
Are you a nocturnal gent? That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I'll run with that one. Nocturnal gent. I mean, you didn't get this white by going out in the sun.
Well, you know what? I have been infatuated with the gents ever since I saw or heard rather Conan and Teddy Hart talk, and Teddy Hart was he was referencing somebody of I don't know, African descendant of slave genealogy and what have you, and he was just like an African gentleman. And I was just like, I took to that almost like Kevin Smith saying sir, him and Jason Mewes saying sir. Like, yes, it's a term of endearment, but also that's fun as shit. Like,
it is.
Yeah. So that Anglo gentleman. Yo, but I mean, obviously, the podcast is booming, 6 years running, and you do a multitude of other things. But like, how did you get into the broadcasting forum? Because like for me, I had kind of like a little bit of a family kind of take. My grandfather in Fiji was like the first broadcaster in the country's history. I went to radio school in like the early 2000s, and then I thought my career was dead because I couldn't get to radio school from Inglewood to Huntington Beach in Southern California. Jesus, on the bus, right? And we had a bus strike happen, blah, 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 whatever. So that was it. And 15 years later, I'm doing this thing. So, I mean, I know that can't be the status quo for you. So how did you start?
So my grandfather, no, I'm just fucking around.
10 points. No. That's why we're friends.
So what happened was I have a long history of working production shit in like adult film. I had a record label at one point in the mid 2000s. So I like a lot of dicking around in various fingers and various pies and entertainment and shit. And I was working a fucking Joe job in 2016 as a private investigator. And what fucking happened was I spent half my fucking day listening to podcasts. I went, I know a lot of fucking people. I can run my fucking mouth. Why the fuck am I not doing this? I went to a party, ran into my original co-host at the party, like, hey, you want to start a podcast? And she went, yeah, sure. And I'm pretty sure she thought it was like one of those LA, like, oh, you're at a party, like pitching ideas thing. 48 hours later, the equipment showed up at my house. Like a week or two later, we recorded the first episode. Podcast was born. And another co-host later, I'm still at it. And I'm still doing it. And somehow my liver is still alive, well, kicking and healthy, according to the last doctor I saw. But that was also a little while ago.
Hey, you know what? Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story is what I've heard. So if it's like, it's kind of okay. It's like a 50-50. So I'm going to, go on the side of it's kind of okay. Right? Let's do
I'm not turning yellow. It's healthy enough to keep me like, not jaundice.
Yeah, exactly. You got a pretty nice shade to you, Matt Slayer. Has anybody told you that?
That's definitely a first.
Okay.
What, are you flirting with me on your own show? That's what's happening right now?
I'm definitely putting you over. And especially
I'm going to blush a little bit here. I'm going to blush.
Hey, that's absolutely fine. And especially the fact that you used to be a private investigator. I might have some skeletons in the closet. So it's pretty good to make nice with Matt Slayer right now. That's what I'm saying.
Hey, I'm only going to look into him if someone pays me.
Oh, touche. Wow, I don't know what the hell that was. But anywho,
did you kidnap someone?
I think yes, my kidney was talking to me. I don't know what the fuck. Maybe they had some kind of Jedi mind tricks with your kidneys and liver, and decided to speak on this. That's what I'm going with.
Okay, we'll run with that.
So
Talking organs.
yes, exactly. Tell me organs. I when you were saying that and like whatever, and organs talking to myself, like I just think of guar. That's playing organs. That's it. Like not the organ, like little internals, like your guts.
Have you ever been to a guar show?
No,
Yeah.
can I go to one?
They're still playing out. I mean, it's not the original lineup, but they're still playing out.
Okay, yeah,
And you will be covered in fake fluids.
I think that's the preconceived notion. I mean, if you think you're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna wear like a suit all of I don't know, snow and whatever, and then like come out of it unscathed, then you don't know what the fuck war is what I'm saying.
I'm just recommending don't wear any clothing you ever plan to wear again.
That
shit doesn't come out.
Ooh, okay. Permanent what is it? I was gonna say, but yeah, permanent excrementally fluids by Guar. I like it.
It's a good time. It's definitely a good time.
So, I mean, you were saying, you started out with a co-host, and then you kind of leveraged a little bit of, the people that you knew in and around town, in and around your life, to kind of leverage that into, your first podcast. Is that the first incarnation of And Now We Drink, or
Yep, that was it called? Okay. It was originally called the 288 Podcast, which that name is too clever for its own fucking good. Not to pat myself on the back too much. It's California Police Code for lewd conduct. Ooh. And no one ever fucking got it. The only people who ever fucking got it was me talking to some cop on like Hollywood Boulevard one night, and the cops laughed about it. I'm like, yeah, you're not my demo. Fuck.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I mean, in terms of police codes of 187 on a motherfucking cop, like that's pretty much universal. But the thing about it is, I would think that it would be some like one of your listeners in like Des Moines that would have got California, police talk, the 50 talk for lewd conduct. I that's just me.
Yeah, no one ever fucking got it. Like, there have been other interviews with me where like the interviewer didn't ask what it meant and like put in the show notes like, oh, it's named after a brand of whiskey. I'm like, no.
Wow.
But effectively, it was a very similar show. Just throwing back drinks and talking with the guests and having the conversation go wherever the fuck it went.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of podcasts. And we're saying this on the ass end of like the Rogan, Neil Young, Nils Lofgren, who thought like the guitarist for Bruce Springsteen would weigh on Spotify and whatever. But like we're kind of there. But this is kind of an important moment in history. And for me, I dug the like punk rock metal mentality, just do it your fucking self and everything like that. And I always kind of held in high regard those guys in the 70s, guys and girls in the 70s that would literally rig up a fucking van conversion into a studio and drive on the outskirts of town, pretty much fucking yanking the signals of all of the town's bigger stations, the top 40 stations and shit like that. And that's an important deal. Like, of course, there are other countries that don't abide by the Second Amendment. Oh no, not First Amendment. I get those two confused. You don't want to shoot everybody, but anyway, I digress.
It's America. Aren't we supposed to shoot everybody?
In some circles, that would be true, especially where Rogan's at in Texas. But it's weird, right? Because like here is this wild and woolly internet, and then Rogan inks this fucking huge $100 million deal. Everybody starts podcasting, thinking they could get a piece of the pie. They start centering themselves. That's one of the things that I can't stand in some podcasts. Like that happens in wrestling, where like it's podcasting, but then you get bleeps, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Maybe I'm just skewed to Rogan and Now We Drink. Hearing that that type of freedom, but it's kind of a weird situation to be in.
Well, I get it. When you're signed to a major podcast network, they're going after national advertisers, the same sort of advertisers that would be on broadcast fucking television. So they got to steer away from shit that's too controversial or profanity, because Tide doesn't want their name attached to someone talking about making a cocktail out of their urine and scotch like I just had on my most recent episode.
Wow. You're in Scotch? My goodness.
Yeah.
There's a joke in there somewhere, but I mean I think that would be a greatest product placement ever. If you listen to like Joey Diaz's fucking ad reads and shit like that, what's up, cocksucker? Like that's what you're getting. So I would think like urine and fucking whatever alcoholic beverage that pairs well with it would be a great source, because if you got that on your clothing, well, guess what? We got a fucking side pen for you, right?
Yeah, but these national advertisers are just afraid of controversy, and that's the biggest problem. That it's just a weird state of affairs with podcasting, because podcasting is still the goddamn Wild West, and that's the beauty of the medium. Apple and Spotify to these days, for the most part, are pretty fucking hands off. As long as you're not promoting hate speech, they are a-okay with anything you fucking say. Where once you're on a network and they have an ad salesman, that's when shit gets dialed back. Like a couple years back, worked on a pretty prominent rapper's podcast, and he had left his network deal because his show was just too risque for the network. But on the flip side, even with all his fucking fame, he didn't have nearly the reach without the network. So it's a double-edged sword.
That's wild. That's wild. Like in my heart of hearts, I almost want to believe like just do the thing, right? I mean, not to. I almost feel like Rogan's deal, and I mean $100 million, but I mean Rogan was pulling in six figures per week, if not per month.
The math that a little inside baseball on some of the people that like in that camp, roughly from what I have heard, and this is second, third hand, was $30,000 to $40,000 an episode.
There you go.
And he was doing 2 to 3 episodes a week.
Yeah, that's what I've gotten too. But for me, it almost felt like it almost muddied the waters. It saturated the market, and I'm a big advocate. Anybody who wants to start a podcast or fucking content creation or whatever the fuck, TikTok, Instagram, right? If that's like, if you're somebody who is a little kid and they're like, you fucking figured out how to, reel in the system and make it work for you, do that. Like I want to be a personality, but I don't want to act. I don't want to, be a DJ or whatever those, je ne sais quoi were of traditional media when, we are all young youths, and it's weird because now I hear people, and there's nothing wrong with like you shooting for the moon, even if you land short, you land amongst the stars. But I hear people like, oh, if I don't get a major sponsor within 20 episodes, I'm done. And those people have come and went, prominent names, not so prominent names. And it's, you were just mentioning, right? Like, you were thinking about doing a podcast with the co-host and what have you, your first co-host, and then the podcast, materials and equipment showed up at your door, whereas 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't the case, and it's kind of sullied the waters a little bit and got it a little bit more, I don't know. Like, I don't want the podcast to be a brass ring. I don't want it to be anything different than, two people or more people just having a wild time on the air for all the people to see. Because again, we have people that are struggling with mental illness, all this jazz or whatever. So come, you're a part of our community. Like, come one, come all. Chum in the comments, do whatever you do, tweet it out, Facebook it. I don't care. Just do it. It's there for you. It's there for the guests, and that's it. To me, it's simplistic. I don't know.
Well, it's one of those things where I produce for other people as well, and I have a whole like canned fucking speech about like, you're not going to be fucking Joe Rogan. You're not. You are not going to be fucking Rogan. Rogan, before the Joe Rogan Experience really fucking exploded, Joe Rogan was on news radio, on another sitcom, a nationally touring comic, the voice of the goddamn UFC, and it still took like 8 fucking years before the JRE really fucking exploded. He had money, fame, and resources, and it still took fucking years. How is your no-name ass going to compete? You got to be doing this for the love of the game. And even if you are fucking phenomenally talented and dedicated, the likelihood of you reaching that level still pretty fucking low. So don't come in here expecting to be fucking Rogan or Diaz or Tom Segura or any of these other huge fucking podcasts. You got to be doing it for the love of the game.
Yeah,
And
no good.
so many people fucking do not do that. Right now, last count I looked, there was something like 2.5 million podcasts on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts. There are roughly 200,000 that have put out a new episode in the last 6 months. So a lot of people, I have clients that start fucking 5-6 episodes like, nobody's listening, I'm not making any money, and they just fucking stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's but if you're in earnest in your intention, I want to feel like the universe has a way of just weeding yourself out. Seeing the facetious folk. And again, like if you want to do it, do it. But don't have any illusions of grandeur. And sometimes it happens. Sometimes like a fucking Obama and Bruce Springsteen start a podcast that didn't do shit. Like these are the guys who know. Like Springsteen knows who did blow where, and Obama knows where the fucking bodies are buried and shit, literally. And
yeah, but if no one's if they're not talking about that, who gives a fuck?
Agreed. And that's literally it came and went in all of like 6 episodes, I want to say, and that's nothing against them. And it's wild because Nils Lofgren of Bruce Springsteen is like, take my shit off Spotify. I was like, I didn't know you had a fucking back. It's not like you're Lindsey fucking Buckingham, bud. Like,
well, I have so many thoughts about this whole shenanigans.
Go.
First and foremost, fuck Spotify. Fuck Spotify and fuck all the streaming services. Fuck them all. They pay artists fucking nothing for these streams. And on top of it, unless you are a very top tier podcast like Rogan, Spotify ain't paying podcasters shit anything. Musical artists at least get something per stream. Fucking podcasters get fucking nothing. And in some cases, they will do digital ad insertion into your fucking podcast, and you will not see a goddamn cent of that revenue. So, good on these artists that are not as much in the public eye anymore for finding a way to market themselves by going on against Rogan. On the flip side, Rogan gives platforms to a lot of fucking people. And for a long fucking time, Rogan's not always that confrontational with his guests. And Rogan even admits, he put out an Instagram post like yesterday or the day before, admitting that, he was wrong about some things and that he didn't really think about his silly little podcast being the platform that it is. And I can understand that, like, in his mind, yeah, he's consciously aware that millions of people are listening to it. But I'm sure in the back of his head, it's also still the silly little fucking show he started with Brian Redband on his couch. Yeah. So, yeah, it's just a thing where he had to take a step back and actually look at the big picture of it.
No, 100%. And it's wild too, right? Because it's not too dissimilar from, MMA or pro wrestling, boxing, NFL, NBA. You've got a top 1%, the elite of the elite, right? Do you think everyone in the NBA is making LeBron money? Everybody in the NFL is making, Tom Brady money? Like, that's why fucking Pat McAfee is a fucking wizard, that one, right? Because he was a fucking kicker in the NFL. He was a kicker who, that's almost like Phil Collins and Don Henley being drummers and some of the big, the best and biggest lyricists of the next generation of two respective 70s, like big fucking bands in Genesis and the Eagles, respectively, right? So, like, you don't usually get love for the drummers, but Don Henley and fucking Phil Collins, here they are, right? And fucking Neil Peart of Rush, obviously, writing, even though he didn't sing, he fucking penned all of the fucking albums and shit, right? Since his inclusion in the band, right? But fucking McAfee, kicker, Schaub, fucking, like Ultimate Fighter guy. Like these are, it's so wild. But again, these Schaub, you can't say, I don't always like Schaub at times, right? And it's not like I don't like the guy. I just, Sometimes the content I dig it, and sometimes I don't, and that's fine. And if you don't, I mean, if you do, I'm not here to shit on you for liking Shab. Well, Shab, for any fighter, any mixed martial artist, pro wrestler, whatever, look at Shab. Look at all of these, Lauren Sanko of the UFC, all of these people that have used their kind of notoriety from MMA and catapult themselves away from it. And of course, Schaub was getting brought in for Mayweather and Connor and shit like that, but he almost transcended. This is a guy who played NCAA football. He had a cup of coffee in the big time in the NFL, was in the UFC, one of the top 15 at times, right? And then he's making more fucking money talking shit with his friends than he ever did doing any of the things that he did before.
It's true. It's true. To take a step back on the initial point, I don't think comparing NBA and NFL is a good comparison just because they have league minimums. And that league minimum still puts you well above the median income here in the US, where there are MMA fighters and wrestlers on the independent circuit that honestly, after their expenses and everything, are making poverty fucking wages. Just to, back on the initial point. But people like Schaub and all that stuff, Schaub also got fucked by the Reebok deal because he was making a ton of fucking money fighting through his sponsorships. Like, he was a good businessman on it. And that, honestly, that's probably the big reason he moved away from MMA is he lost all that sponsorship money and had to just fight for his fucking contract. And I'm sure he's suffering a lot less fucking head trauma now being out here, telling jokes. But he had a level of infamy already and built-in marketing, which a lot of podcasters don't have that luxury.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So I guess in essence, like, what makes it? Well, I mean, we started at the beginning on how it started, but I mean, when did you start to get? I mean, as an artist, right? You work in production fields, right? And as an artist, there has to be some sort of, if not gratification from the rest of the world or what have you, but there has to be some artistic gratification that you get doing the thing, right? So, I mean, at what point did that happen for you, or has it happened yet?
Well, there's some days where, like, I absolutely love it. Like, I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy hearing people's points of view. I enjoy people's differing points of view. I like rambling on about my own bullshit. Like, my grandparents used to say I like the sound of my own fucking voice. And I guess that's true. Fuck. Grandpa, you're right. But sometimes, it's a slog, and like, it's not always artistically satisfying. I mean, you got to experience this as a podcaster. Like, sometimes you have guests on that aren't as good as others, and you don't feel great about what you created. What do you do with those episodes?
It's wild. I mean, for me, I don't know. That's one of the things that not to say that I pride myself on, but like, I had, this, even before I started like an initial podcast, I had 4 years of doing interviews at, fucking MMA events. And sometimes, especially an amateur card would be 18 fucking fights, right? And then everybody's going to go, oh, I'm going to kick that motherfucker's ass, or I'm a martial artist and whatever the fuck, right? And after like the first or second one, right, to an audience, when you've got fucking, the right side of a fucking 16 card fight saying, I'm going to kick that motherfucker's ass, or, oh, I'm just a humble martial artist or whatever, you have to do something, so I kind of channel in equal parts. Sometimes I'm Mean Gene with fucking, Savage, and Flair, right? And then sometimes I'm Rogan, like, oh yeah, that's cool, but and it's a little bit more of a streamlined deal. So with that all being said, it's almost like drawing water from a stone. Like, I feel like I can ebb and flow enough, right? But then the one that I feel like it's the best shit ever will get all of 12 views, But again, I'm glad that the story is out there. I could give shit about the views, and I think that's the worst thing. Like, I'm the worst promoter of the podcast because like it's there, and I'm like this, like we're talking, like, and even like you've been doing this for 6 years. The fact that I'm talking to you is just, it kind of blows my mind because there's so much. And again, if you guys haven't already done it, go ahead and subscribe to the And Now We Drink podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. I subscribe to YouTube. I've followed it on Spotify and iTunes. So there's that. I know we kind of shit on Spotify a little bit, but I mean,
I gotta play the game. As much as I'll shit on Spotify, I gotta play the game. It is quickly overtaking Apple as the number one place to listen to podcasts. I'd be an idiot to not have my podcast on Spotify. I mean, it's not like Apple pays me any fucking money for being on Apple either. If you want to give me money, I have a Patreon. You can give me money there.
Yeah.
Or you can find your local Hollywood street corner and leave me a bottle.
I mean, that is good as well. I mean, in post COVID, Hollywood,
sealed bottle, sealed.
Yeah, sealed. Yeah, absolutely. Don't get weird. Even though it's Hollywood. No, but I mean, those are the things, like just having conversational stuff and being a good conversationalist, because there's that too. Like just having a podcast and just having a marquee guest, right, and kind of hanging your hat on that, and then not really giving the person listening or watching anything to kind of draw upon. That isn't, like, you're not doing a service there to yourself, to the guests or whatever, and you just become one of the many people that person, guest starred or, was on and whatever. You're not offering anything different.
100%. And that's why, like, when I have adult performers on, I'm very big about not asking about the stereotypical porn questions of like, who do you want to fuck? Do your parents know? How'd you get in the industry? How'd you come with this? Blah, 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 blah. You can go to any other fucking, adult media outlet and get those fucking answers. And I also don't want to consider, And Now We Drink, a porn podcast, even though I do have a lot of adult entertainers on. It's who I want to talk to. Because I've worked in adult for fucking the better part of a decade, as a lot of my Rolodex is adult performers. But I have comedians on, I have musicians on, I have authors on. I don't think I've had any fighters on. I've not actually had any fighters on. I need to fix that at some point.
Oh, I got you, bro. Don't even trip. Don't even trip. Let's make some calls. No, 100%.
All right.
I would love to see, and there's so many great people, and not just the fighter. You strip that away, just great people that are just intriguing, and they also punch and kick each other, away from consciousness unceremoniously, right? Like, that's so fun. Which I got asked, with all the, the adult performers, right? Or just any guests, right? The fact that you kind of steer away from that, the normal je ne sais quoi that probably any other either porn cast or, podcast of that genre covering it. Do you get a bit of a different reaction from the guests themselves? The fact that you're not asking them the same question over and over?
So it goes one of two ways. Either the guest is fucking absolutely thrilled about it because they are sick of answering the same fucking questions over and over and over again, or they're fucking terrified because they've never had anyone ask them questions about their musical taste or travel or what they're doing away from fucking being on set, and they just don't have a fucking answer. And they're just kind of like, I do porn. All I do is porn. And you can tell those episodes where you get a lot more of my stories. I carry the fucking water if I have to.
No, absolutely. I think that's what makes you a great host, because you know your role, and sometimes you shut your mouth, and sometimes you gotta, have to add the extras. Yeah, you gotta be the sizzle on the steak, if you will, right? And that's. And sometimes, you kind of border into, like, some people, they want you to interview the persona, not, kind of peel back the layers of the onion, so to speak.
But even the persona should, at least in my opinion, have other fucking interests besides fucking on film. If you're a goddamn dentist, I'm sure you don't want me to talk about fucking drilling teeth every time you have a fucking conversation. Sure, I am here to promote your fucking dentistry and how mad and how awesome you will make someone's fucking smile. But I also want to know what the fuck you're gonna do after you're off the fucking clock. And I think the audience, as a public persona, is interested in that as well. They're not just like, oh, well, we know you fuck, or we know you make music. What else are you into? Because you can't do this shit 24/7. I can talk about podcasting all the fucking time, but I have a lot of fucking other interests besides podcasting.
No, 100%. But the catch-22 is you get it around that weirdness. If the persona has a persona themselves, right? If you work in the gimmick, 24/7, you get into that weird territory where you're testifying in front of a fucking trial and shit and whatever. Are you talking about Hulk Hogan's dick or Terry Bollea's dick? Like,
but then develop your character better, and develop a better character. Like, does Hulk Hogan, he says his prayers and eats his fucking vitamins? What else does he fucking do? Hulk Hogan's got to do some other shit.
Yeah, I mean,
gotta be method with
shit. I mean, he's done other shit. Then that's kind of fucking alienated him from again. I don't know. I don't want to go into percentages because there's some people that fucking still think he's a real American, and there's motherfuckers that think he's a real American, if you know what I mean. But no. But speaking of the wrestling tip, that's another thing. And shout out to our good brother and fucking fellow podcaster Eddie Torres of the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast, or RBG as it's otherwise known. But we all kind of gravitate to the fucking wrestling, the shit between the ropes and everything. So when did you start your kind of love of pro wrestling?
So I was definitely like a early to mid 90s mark for WWF product. The mid 90s, I gravitated towards WCW. And then probably in 97, 98, I found ECW on like fucking some weird like local station in Chicago. And I was such a fucking ECW mark for a number of years there. And then honestly, I know we met at a New Japan show. I was just there to like hang out. Like, I'm not really into wrestling anymore because I discovered MMA in like the early 2000s and I just never really moved back. It was a perfect storm. Like, I discovered MMA. Starrcade 98 happened. I was a giant Goldberg mark at that point. So like I pretty much just gave up on WCW after that point. I thought WWEF's product was pretty much garbage. I gave it another shot when the Invasion angle happened, and the Invasion angle was such fucking garbage. I was pretty much just turned off on pro wrestling at that point, and just got deeper into MMA.
That makes sense. I mean, there was a time where people thought that pro wrestling was real, and I would say maybe 70s, early 80s is when, and prior to that, Luthez, the Ed Strangler Lewis's, and what have you, Vern Gagne's of the
Bruiser
world.
Brody. And
100%. But then after, I mean, I don't want to say and point to the fucking the Vince McMahon steroid trial of the early 90s, but also when you're getting your ass kicked, you don't go and then fucking kick somebody in the gut and then go ahead and fucking compress your own damn spine by throwing a leg drop. Like, I don't, like that's.
I enjoyed the pageantry of it, but like as I grew older, it's just like the stories just weren't as compelling.
Facts.
And like I felt like how the booking on the Goldberg end of Goldberg's run, I was so tied up in Goldberg's run. Like, as a Jewish kid, like, holy shit, there's this big fucking Jew beating everyone's fucking ass. Was just kind of like, oh, that's really fucking cool. And like how intense he was, and then just the booking on that was just like we all knew the run had to end at some point. It had to end. But for it to end like that was just like it spit in like the face of everything they had done before it.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned like, oh, the big Jewish guy or whatever, because literally, I think around the time of like the streak, and he might have had the WCW world title at that point, but he went on Regis and Kathy Lee back in the day, and they were like, Goldberg, that sounds like a fucking dentist, like like,
Yeah, William Goldberg DDS. Come on.
but but that run, and you were like, oh, you knew it had to end. No, fuck, I didn't know. I hated Nash for a good bit after that. Like that and a taser. You kill fucking Goldberg's run for a taser.
Right,
You
and
know,
then the Poke of Doom, the Poke of Doom the next day sucked as well, but just the end of the run bothered me more than the Poke of Doom. Like, they're Nash laying down for his friend to reunite the NWO, as lame as it is, like, makes sense from a story standpoint. The whole story standpoint of how they ended Goldberg's run, fucking garbage.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, there's mismanagement. I mean, obviously, I don't know if did you get to see the Rumble a bit?
Mm-mm.
You didn't miss anything. It was just like at times I'm like, up, I'm done, and then I'll tune in, and then I'm done. I don't like WWE wrestling makes me sad. Like I can watch GCW, love New Japan, love GCW, like AEW as well. In addition to the MMA exploits, like for me, if you could have a fucking, I think when GCW ran the Hammerstein in New York, right? There was like a UFC fight night and what have you. To me, that was my fucking everything, right? Because you got all punchy, kicky, slammy shit all on weekend, and it was both on a Saturday, right? So Sunday, actually, the GCW show I believe was on a Sunday. So you had your day before, to fucking get your shit together, spend time with the family, whatever. But then when that fucking start time happened, everything else ceases to exist, and I fucking dig that shit.
So, on the MMA like wrestling front, that New Japan show is like the first wrestling show I've watched in forever,
Yeah.
fucking ever. And as much as I enjoyed it, the one thing I had problems suspending disbelief with is like you have two active MMA fighters wrestling that night. It's like I can't buy that either one of these guys are going to fucking lose. I can't suspend disbelief that these guys could possibly actually lose a fight if this is real, because the people they're going against aren't MMA caliber fighters in most cases.
No, absolutely. Well, so this is where I take it, right? I go back to Bellator, right? You remember when Bellator had that light heavyweight tournament soon after the downfall of Strikeforce, and there was some Strikeforce fighters that ended up in the UFC, like Gilbert Melendez and fuck, what's the guy? Jake Shields and everything.
Jake Shields,
Right,
Robbie Lawler
right,
ended up over there. Tyron
right,
Woodley,
right.
Cormier came over.
But King Mo didn't.
Correct.
Right? Because him and Dana were at odds, right? Him and Zuffa were at odds. But I mean, moreover, him and Dana had odds, right? So Bjorn Rekney, he was like, fuck it, we got King Mo. Sign me up. Signed him, put him in the fucking light heavyweight tournament, and he gets KO'd by the world's slowest spinning back fist by Emmanuel Newton, who was nothing against Emmanuel Newton because he ended up taking it and becoming the Bellator light heavyweight champion, but again, it was almost like the fucking, Brawl for All. And that was supposed to be the vehicle for Dr. Death Steve Williams to be an ass kicker and shit like that. And then first round, he gets by a nobody.
That's why I love MMA, because it's unpredictable. It's one of those things where, like, since I know pro wrestling's a work, it's hard to like be emotionally invested when it's like, oh, hey, this guy's an active professional fighter. Versus, like, when Ken Shamrock was doing his WWF run, I guess I was not as aware of who Shamrock was as a actual fighter. So him taking losses didn't register like the same, like if Tom Lawler would take a loss in New Japan. It's like, Tom Lawler like still has fucking fights to this day in the PFL.
Right. Which, I mean, and nothing against Tom, it might have not worked out his way, right? So that's, to me, the unpredictability of MMA that I could actually believe them coming into wrestling a little bit more. And if you notice, like, whether it be Goldberg, whether it be Vader, Taker in later years, people, and then go down the list of like Davey Richards, Brian Danielsons, and Samoa Joes that implore an MMA based style into their pro wrestling. Those are the guys and girls that would go over. I love the fact that we have a literal descendant of fucking Carl Gotch and Billy Robinson in the WWE, and it's a woman in Shayna Baszler, who also happens to be part of Ronda Rousey's friend group, the Four Horsemen of MMA, right? Like, those are the shit that I get psyched over. The fact that Harry Smith, Davey Boy Smith's son, is an avid fucking catch wrestler. That's the shit, and he loves pro wrestling so much. But I think if he went into MMA, he'd do a little bit better. But as you can see with Lawler and a lot of other guys and girls that end up coming over to the Squirrel Circle, they make a hell of a lot more money than they do in even bigger promotions like Bellator and the UFC. So
that's the problem with fighter pay altogether. And that's why the UFC is being fucking sued for antitrust at the moment. But you also, sometimes the wrestling promotions misbook former MMA fighters. So, like, how bad did the WWE just butcher Cain Velasquez? Fucking Velasquez. The guy, when he's injury free, is probably one of the best heavyweights to ever do it.
Yeah, no, 100%. But it's, what can you do with a guy like that? Because, I mean, one of the reasons why, Cain's, even though he's one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, his mind and his heart, far exceeds the toughness of his body, and his body would get worn down because he had a never say die attitude, right? And that permeated into that, right? So now you've got a injury prone ex MMA fighter who might be in his late 30s, early 40s, but really his body age and dynamic is, he might as well be fucking 60, and you've been conditioned to a Brock Lesnar, and look how Brock Lesnar looked versus Cain Velasquez, right? And even though Cain beat Brock and everything, and they could reignite that storyline, but that's assuming that, what we did right now was more insight than the actual WWE had when they fucking signed him.
Well, and that's the problem. That is the goddamn problem. Like, why sign someone like Cain Velasquez if you're not going to use him well?
Because you can.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem with my problem with pro wrestling, and why I'm not super into pro wrestling anymore, is like the WWE's monopoly has made them fucking lazy, has made the writing lazy, has just made a product that I'm not interested in.
Right.
And they've continued to do things for 20 years because they can. The Monday Night Wars was the best thing that ever fucking happened to wrestling.
Fuck yeah. There's no complaints here, but for me, I think that in times of when they borrow from each other, because if you, anybody that knows the history, right? When you look at like, Frank Gotch versus George Hackenschmidt or whatever, those were wrestling matches, but would probably be more akin to what you see at Eddie Bravo was EBI, Eddie Bravo Invitational, two guys exchanging holds and no time limits or what have you, a modified set of rules or whatever. Now, obviously, it divulged as the media, whether it be radio and then later television into pay-per-view, now streaming, right? Once that got visibility, well, then I kiss fizz kid, like, you win tonight, I win the next night, and then we can really find out on the third match who wins, but we go 3 different gates rather than just drawing the one, right? And that's when the worker aspect of it, I feel, began to kind of permeate the mat wars.
That's just part of the problem with doing kayfabe in the internet era. Is like, how many times do people lose during dark matches that just never got reported to television?
Facts.
And now it's like, oh, if you lose on a dark match, everyone fucking knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard. It's harder to build those compelling storylines, even for the local audiences. But they could do better. There's so much fucking resources, and the fact that like part of it is the WWE wants to do basically more cartoonish, family-friendly product than they did in the quote Attitude Era. I get it. Once again, comes to advertisers.
Right.
Comes to advertisers and television deals. But as a grown-ass man, I'm not super into like that sort of entertainment. I want something that's gritty. Hell, even in the late 90s, when I was a teenager, part of what attracted me to ECW is just how fucking gritty ECW was.
Right. Yeah.
Like, the storylines were gritty. The fucking wrestling was not always the most polished product in the world.
No. Right, exactly.
But Jesus Christ, watching Rob Van Dam fling himself into the crowd, or the Dudleys taking beers out of fucking audience members' hands and spitting it back in their face. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, that's some real fucking heat. And
yeah.
Nothing like that happens anymore.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, even with, with MMA, right? Going back to fighter pay, it's wild because you almost have to develop a persona. And when people think, and this is what irritates me with the MMA hardcores that are like, oh, there's too much WWE in my, my MMA, fuck it, or whatever. The thing about it is and I hate using the reference because of who it is, right? But like Benoit in ECW, right? Chris Benoit in ECW, and this is not at all excusing what happened or whatever. We all don't know. CTE is a real thing, but still a horrible fucking tragedy that happened and befell of the Benoit family, right? But when he was in ECW, he couldn't fucking cut a promo to save his life. So after hours and hours of Heyman trying to get something out of him, and it was like fucking dusk and shit like that, it's like, get some baby powder, right? He's a fucking technician. Put the baby powder in his hand and you start with it, and the fucking baby powder is kind of whatever, and it looks like smoke and shit like that. That's the you don't have to be, let me tell you something, brother, or whatever the fuck, or, the Conor McGregor-esque, you could be a legit martial artist, right? You be a legit martial artist, but also be if that's the case, are you a samurai? Are you this, fucking kung fu, the legend continues as person? Like, how can we make this work for you? Because we saw in the instances of Curtis Blades, right? Top 5 heavyweight in the fucking world, right? And he's like, when after DC beat Stipe, right? KO'd Stipe, Brock comes in, barged into the fucking octagon, right? And the first thing, Curtis Blades, well, I'm the next in line. I'm a traditional martial artist. And Dana White fucking told his ass, like, cool, be that traditional martial artist, and you'll be fucking teaching judo to the fucking kids in the strip mall in your local town. And to me, it became very apparent. And I mean, it was already there, but it just solidified it, right? You can call it what you want, right? It's still entertainment. And even more so that the UFC is owned by one of the biggest talent agencies in the known Hollywood universe, right? And I mean, I'll say this. There are people pre-COVID within WME Endeavor, right? When I was like, they were like, hey, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a MMA interviewer. Like, what's MMA? Oh, like you guys own the UFC. What's the UFC? There are people within the fucking company that own them that don't know what the fuck it is, right? These are the same people.
That's wild. That's wild to me.
It's not wild at all. I mean, and you could go to Viacom, right? Ask them about Bellator. It's probably even less, right? Unless you work in the fucking, part.
With the whole McGregor fucking Madison or Barclays Center with throwing the fucking dolly and how much that was in the news cycle. How do you not know what fucking MMA is at this point?
Yeah, but and this is the thing that I try to get to fighters, right? You might be the biggest thing in MMA, and there's still people in 2022 that don't know what the fuck MMA is, right?
It's true. It's true.
There's no, there's no, NBA finals. There's no World Series. There's no Super Bowl of MMA where everybody within, whether they watch the fucking product, 52 weeks out of the year, or kindly casually check in, or might subscribe to fucking ESPN Plus and UFC Fight Pass, whatever the fucking case, what I like to call as the pop culture lexicon, right? You haven't hit that. There's still people that don't know. So you could be the biggest shit and whatever. And let's see, who's the biggest draw in MMA right now? Francis Ngannou. Okay, Francis Ngannou.
It's still McGregor. Sadly, it's still McGregor.
It's still McGregor. Okay, so you might maybe know who McGregor is, right? Maybe, right? But if Tom Brady walks in, that's where all the fucking paparazzi is going. That's where, and not just it's Tom Brady, right? It's the fucking, whether you like him or not, what he's accomplished in his career. He's married to a fucking model. He's every one of those tropes that the fucking TMZ flashbulbs want. That's there, right?
Unless McGregor's fighting random people, then they love that shit.
That too.
I mean, they covered the fuck out of him fucking with Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But to me, I just feel like there could be a bit more that could be borrowed from each, right? Because honest to goodness, like Dana White, there was a good time, and sometimes it happens still, right? Where what Dana implores in the UFC and institutes in the UFC are 4 years behind what the WWE did, right? Like fucking WWE Network, fucking what is it? The UFC Fight Pass, right? Shit, the same antitrust lawsuit that is befalling of the UFC, and rightfully so, right? The NWA, not the fucking, Ice Cube and all them. No, the National Wrestling Alliance. They were going through in the 50s where they were blackballing motherfuckers. Almost the exact antitrust lawsuit, right? That happened literally 60 years before, right? And we still haven't learned. But that's also, I think, the thing in society where we don't learn from history and we are doomed to repeat it. But it's wild. Like I almost wish, like, if you're a persona, right? If you're a persona in MMA, right? Like, play into that, lean into that. And as much as your coach is training you to become this fucking assassin and what have you, you almost need in every gym like a media training, right? Just to be able to connect with people. You can be the small, like, docile, mild tone person and everything like that, but how do you do that to elicit the response out of other people that might be identified with you?
Well, look at Anderson Silva. Look, Anderson fucking
100%.
didn't speak English for a good chunk of his career.
Mhm.
Out there just fucking dominating motherfuckers, but was never that big of a pay-per-view draw because the audience just didn't connect with him. And then when he started really clowning people, it turned off some more people. And you got to be able to, play the game. But you also, on the flip side, you have people like George St. Pierre, Khabib, who aren't out there McGregoring it up or Chael Sonnen it up, that have had very successful career and been very good draws. Then again, Khabib's biggest draw, the biggest draw in UFC history, is Conor versus Khabib. And, Conor is definitely responsible for a good chunk of that, and the narrative of Conor just being a colossal douchebag.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, but I don't know. Which I kind of want to ask you, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but
I don't care. I'm here. I'm here for it.
Okay, so in terms of, like, because we hear in at least in pro wrestling, right? Like Bret Hart used to do these. Like, where would you rate a wrestler, and what would be the archetype of a perfect wrestler in your eyes? So I'm gonna flip the script on you, right? And answer. You could either do a percentage or, like, hey, fuck, I want the arms of John Jones and reach of John Jones, or whatever, and you can take it anatomically correct. But what would be per Matt Slayer the fucking archetype of a perfect MMA fighter? What would you expect of the next big star in MMA?
I mean, I think that partially depends on weight class, because Jones is, for the heavier classes, 100% the perfect body for MMA. He's proven it. The dude has not lost. Has no losses to his record. Fuck the Matt Hamill bullshit DQ. Being long and lanky, people have tried to attack his legs. Machida attacked his legs thinking that because they're a little thin, that was a weak spot. Didn't work out very well for him. He got choked fucking unconscious standing up. So on the heavier weight classes, it's Jones. It's just Jones. You don't have to like take anywhere else. Obviously, if you could give John Jones Ngannou's punching power, that would be goddamn unstoppable.
Which, by the way, I mean, would you take Jones with all of the, I don't know, marring of?
Well, we're just talking about like body and fighter, not.
But also, like you also need a page turner if they're on the cover of what, ESPN or Sports Illustrated, if they're on Extra or whatever, trope that media, or like what would be the star or fighter be to take the UFC and MMA as a whole into the next stratosphere, into the next decade?
McGregor already has done it to a degree. You got to remember, MMA as a organized sport is under 30 years old.
Right.
Like, think of where it is as a sport compared to the major leagues, baseball, basketball, NFL. It's not even 30 years old.
Right.
They've been playing fucking professional baseball since 1900, if not earlier. The NFL came together, in the 40s, 50s as like the current modern league?
Right, true. AFL, NFL, something like that.
Like, when was the first Super Bowl? We're at like Super Bowl 40?
Definitely a Lombardi one. I want to say that was it. And then also, I think the fucking first, everybody makes a big deal about the fucking, the halftime show, but that really wasn't a thing until Michael Jackson at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Before, it was just like whatever college band of wherever they were playing and shit like that. It didn't become a national phenomenon, and that was just like within our lifetimes. Like, we were just marching band, and they didn't even show who the fuck played. And then Michael Jackson was like the first big, and that was like the height of his King of Pop or whatever.
Everyone saw money. Everyone fucking saw. But with MMA, the Fertittas bought it from SCG for hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Like $2 million. I think that was
like a negligible amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And SCG was about to go under.
Yeah.
To selling it for billions. I mean, hell, if you could tell me like, hey, Matt, you could invest in this business and within 30 years, it's going to have that magnitude of fucking profit margin.
Right.
And it's not like the Fertittas haven't been turning a profit the whole fucking time either.
Right.
I mean, there were points where they weren't, but in the later years, it was definitely a profitable business.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the Fertittas, and that's an interesting story that a lot of people, even like the diehards, don't even realize. But how to get the UFC into New York State, right? Where the reason why, I mean, Rogan talks about it. His first UFC was supposed to be in upstate New York, and then it got reconfigured to Dothan, Alabama, right? But that was, I mean, it wasn't solely because I believe they were still under SEG during that time, UFC 12 or thereabouts.
Yeah, that should still be SEG era. But yeah, the Fertittas have a long-standing beef with a restaurant or like a union, a trade union out of Vegas.
Yeah,
and that's just the wild part. It's like, these are two technically the station casinos and the trade union are two unrelated businesses, but because of the politics of it, MMA couldn't get in New York. And that's the other thing. There was never a point, at least that I'm aware of, where the federal government and at least local and state governments were banning the NFL, the NBA, baseball.
True.
MMA went from being like allowed on native reservations and like floating islands in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
to where it is today. It is made insane leaps and bounds in its 25 to 30-year existence versus the other leagues. Fighter pay should definitely increase, but boxing has an over 100-year fucking tradition to get where it is. And I have no clue how boxing still makes as much money as it does. Who wants to fucking watch boxing?
Yeah, people do. It's weird, and I
don't
think
get it.
It's a generational thing, right? And especially when you look at like, you know, Latinx countries like Mexico, Argentina, El Salvador, fucking, you know, going over on the other side of the seaboard of, you know, Russia, and like boxing is still very big. You know, wrestling is still very big. You know, things that don't necessarily chart as well here in the U.S. in North America chart well on the other side. Like, there's not going to be a fucking.
MMA is fucking huge in Eastern Europe now, though.
Now, yeah, but that wasn't always the case. Of course, with Fedor, right? Fedor's still the shit, dude. Like, there's an aura about that fucking guy, you know. It
doesn't matter who he's fighting, just like emotionless.
Yeah, dude.
Kevin randomly drops you on my head. It's fine. I'm just gonna beat his ass.
Yeah. Fuck, I was at the forum when Ryan Bader KO'd Fedor. The fucking hush. And I mean, this is post to, you know, him getting choked out by fucking Fabricio Verdum and Strikeforce and shit like that. But still, like the fucking mood changed. Like, I mean, to kind of coin a phrase from Taz of ECW fame, the mood fucking changed, bro. Like, it was weird. I mean, I almost felt like, obviously on a smaller scale, but when fucking Taker's streak got ended at Mania, like, it was like, and instead of that one guy's face, like the entire fucking arena, I looked around.
Because it was a given. When I remember where I was when Fedor lost to Verdum, I was out at a bar with some friends that night because I wasn't going to bother to watch the fight because I knew Fedor was just going to win. It was just an inevitable thing for me. Like, I don't need to order this card. Like, I'll watch it later. You know, Fedor's going to win. And then, like, I'm at the bar and pull up on, like, the phone, like, are you fucking kidding me? Fedor lost? He legitimately, holy shit. Taker's streak was the same thing. It's like, oh, you really need to watch the Taker match? He's going to win. It's just, especially in, you know, WWE where it's like, this is scripted. Taker's going to win.
Yeah, it's wild, you know, and I, you know, like you were saying, you know, it's MMA as a whole is still, you know, under 30-year fucking deal. Now you could go into, like, you know, Valetudo and Pancrase and everything, which again has, look no further than Minoru Suzuki, you know, him and Funaki, not the WWF Funaki, but they created, you know, Pancrase, where, you know, guys like Baz Rutten and our friend Josh Barnett.
That's like 92, like 89 to 92. That's still like barely over 30 years. The earliest real instance is Muhammad Ali versus Inoki, or
actually, it was even before that. It was Gino Jean LaBelle and Milo Savage.
Yeah. I mean, but that was just a one-off exhibition. Both those fights were just basically one-off exhibitions for it to become the sport it is, and the fact that, like, the sport is constantly evolving. I mean, hell, they proved it. They threw Hoist Gracie into the deep end with Matt Hughes, and he just got fucking destroyed. And that was 15 years ago at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So if you threw some of the originators, assuming that, like, their body could hold up to today,
right,
and, like, the skill sets were frozen in time, would get honestly destroyed by probably some fucking purple belt at someone's fucking fight camp.
Yeah, the top, I mean, the top 20, maybe female flyweight, I would say. You know, that's that. You know, what is it? Kimo Leopoldo versus Valentina Shevchenko. Yeah. Leopoldo's getting fucking mauled.
I have a feeling it would go much like his loss to Hoist, where it's like, she won, but she knew she would be in a fight.
That's facts. That's facts. Which
that guy was a monster.
Yeah. Carrying crosses. And it's funny because, like, people talk about Diego Sanchez, and, you know, well, there's a lot of reasons One of them chiefly is fucking Josh Fabia, but there's a lot of reasons that people talk about Diego Sanchez. But one of them is because him fucking exercising the fucking cross and shit and walking. Leopoldo fucking had a cross on his fucking back, like a true to life fucking cross.
I know. And then Joe Son tried to do it and wasn't the giant monster, like gassed himself carrying the cross to the fucking ring.
Bro, do you know what happened with Joe Son, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, guy's on fucking in prison.
Horrible shit.
Yeah, horrible human being.
Oh.
Betting in those early UFC days were not so great. It was like the way you got into like the first couple of UFCs was like sign up in the back of Karate Monthly or some shit. Like, do you think you're the baddest motherfucker on the planet? Like, honestly, I've seen tougher dudes in bar rooms. Like, and half those guys like, is that guy just showing up into like a wife beater and Zuffa pants? Like, all right.
Yeah. Or fucking Art Jefferson, you know, one glove on, one glove off, just in case he had to grapple a motherfucker.
And he tapped to being mounted. He wasn't even choked out. He tapped to being mounted.
Yeah. Like, you imagine a fucking 5-year-old white belt, they would be like, what the fuck? Like, well, you know, kids right now would be like, that's unforgivable.
Hell, look at what happened to James Toney versus fucking Couture. I mean, it's not like Couture's not the top of the fucking game, but James Toney is very much a champion level boxer, and he got leg picked and arm triangled real fast.
Yeah. But I mean, it wasn't the lights out Tony of the early to mid 90s, right? I mean, we're gonna. This is not as svelte lights out Tony as we were used to seeing before in its heyday, you know. So I mean,
yeah, but if you had taken Couture at the same age and put them in a fucking MMA rules fight at the same time, it probably would have been the same result of a leg pick and an arm triangle.
That is true. That is fucking true.
There's a reason Mayweather wants nothing to do with Conor in an MMA cage.
That is right. Yeah, because they said they were going to run that shit back. It never happened.
Yeah, if they ran that shit back in an MMA cage, holy shit. Like, Mayweather, the minute he goes to clinch, he's like, why am I catching elbows?
Yeah. I don't. That's wild. Well, I gotta ask. Like, so I mean, what do you make of the whole fucking Triller deal? Because it's equal. I mean, because you were just saying like, who still watches boxing? We had like that. I don't even know who the fuck they are, but one of the Paul brothers and KSI pre-COVID sell out the Staples Center, which was essentially a fucking a debut boxing match, right? Like. And I had a lot of friends that were like, oh my God, like nobody should pay to see that. I'm a fucking martial artist. Essentially echoing the sentiments of Curtis Blades in similar situations and it going nil. But what is your take on like this celebrity boxing type deal?
Well, so the Pauls have a very large built-in fan base. And there's a whole people who want to pay to watch them get knocked out. It's really that simple. Like, but I think those events are losing their luster. I believe the last one with the second Woodley fight, the numbers were way down. So it's a freak show. It's a novelty, and the novelty's fucking wearing off.
I don't know. I paid to fucking see Woodley getting his ass kicked like again. No, I mean, fuck. I don't mean the fucking but fucking Woodley, dude. You were talking about like fighter pay. This is a guy who could have really led the fucking charge, right? He was at odds with Dana. Pay me more, blah blah blah. If you're not gonna pay me, I'm gonna release a rap album. I'm gonna fucking be in a movie, blah 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 blah, right? And so he had valid points. I'm not saying that he didn't, right? But then he had fucking horrible fights. Shit, boy, like I was there for fucking Woodley and Wonder Boy at UFC 209. I've been to a lot of fucking shows, a lot of MMA, a lot of whatever. I've never heard the amount of boos and the furor behind them than I did that night at T-Mobile Arena. And I swear to God, I have since UFC 209, I have been not interested in either Woodley or Thompson. They could fucking head kick KO 80 motherfuckers in a row, and I could not give a shit because I was there. They fucking sucked, So, yeah, but Woodley, he could have been that fucking Trojan horse. We didn't need the fucking fighters union, whatever. He could have really been the guy. And then you alienate the fucking company you're working for, and then you alienate the fucking fans. What do we got?
Yeah, You got a release Tyler Woodley getting knocked out by a YouTuber and laughing all the way to the fucking bank. So
Yes,
I don't
yeah.
feel too bad for him.
I mean, we saw that with Aspen, him and his wife walking out the arena. Like, they might as well have fucking, like, we're off to see you, the wizard.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, if the Paul brothers keep knocking out these legitimate fighters, it's going to start causing more and more skepticism on how legitimate these trailer fights are as well. Like, the fight with Mayweather, that was an exhibition because no one would fucking license it.
Right.
So are they going to continue doing these quote exhibition fights for millions of dollars? The public are smart marks. Eventually, they're going to fucking be like, yeah, this is a fucking scam, or we're never going to get our satisfaction on watching a Paul brother get knocked out. I would rather spend my money elsewhere, especially as money gets tighter. You got to remember also, a good chunk of these trailer cards happened when stimulus checks and free money were still coming in. So people had disposable income to spend. Like, oh yeah, I'm getting a government check. I'll spend $70 to watch fucking Jake Paul. I'm stuck at home, whatever. Your entertainment has to be much more compelling when people have options.
Yeah, you're right. No, 100%. It's kind of harkens back to your kind of comment of your lack of enjoyment of pro wrestling, which, I mean, that right there, it's where the cookie crumbles, my man. Which I mean, as feverish as a fan of mixed martial arts as you are, do you have favorites, or do you just like the thrill of the fight?
I have some favorites. I was into Khabib from the moment I watched him just wrestle Abel Trio, and just Abel, who had a huge wrestling pedigree, just get ragdoll and like kind of look like I don't even know what the fuck to do here. So, and then obviously since Khabib became Khabib by the end of it, everyone knows fucking Khabib. Let's see, who else am I keen on? I was a fan of Frank Mir back in the day. I guess Frank's not dead. Still a fan of Frank Mir. Part of it was I enjoyed him knee barring the fuck out of Lesnar. And also the fact that, like, he had some really solid submission wins. And the fact that Mir also, every time he went to submit someone, looked like he was just trying to take their arm. And in a lot of cases, he did.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who else in the modern era am I hyped about? I mean, I'm hyped to watch Francis fight just because ever since he fucking, knocked over him into the stratosphere.
Shit, yeah.
You can't beat that. I'm trying to think of, like, people that are further down the card, because it's like, oh, Matt, you're just naming the fucking, the headliners.
I mean, the flyweights are fucking, they haven't been as interesting since fucking DJ left, like since Mighty Mouse. Like, this Figueiredo Moreno shit is awesome.
Yeah, it's really fucking good. And hell, cringy ass Triple C pointed this out, like, after the fight. That division was on the chopping block like a year ago.
100%. I would even say before that. I mean, Dana sent fucking TJ Dillashaw from bantamweight to go in and kill the division. That was
and then get knocked the fuck out in 25 seconds.
And then fucking test positive for fucking EPO. Like, that was like, oh, that was almost as bad of a debacle as the whole, heavyweight title scene. Like, they fucking built Francis out, whatever, and then they feed him to fucking Stipe the first time. He gets waylaid. His mind is not whatever. And then
we get the worst fight in UFC history.
Right, absolutely. Then he comes back, after a 2-year sabbatical, whatever, starts killing motherfuckers again, whatever. Ends up beating fucking Stipe for the title, right? And then, like, oh, what do you want to do, Francis? Like, I'm actually gonna fucking leave the country right now. Oh, cool, because we wanted you to fight Derek Lewis in Houston, right? That's not really gonna work for me. So, like, okay, cool, whatever. And then fucking have an interim title fight in Houston, where what they wanted to happen again with Derek Lewis reigning supreme with a title didn't happen, because he gets waylaid by Gon, who hadn't even been in the UFC pre-COVID. Like,
I know.
Yeah.
The best part about Derek Lewis on that one was like Derek Lewis was like, I am never fighting at home again. Like he's just like, there's too much fucking pressure fighting in Houston.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But then,
that sort of shit is real. That is what is compelling about MMA is like, oh, hey, someone mentally having an off night, no matter how physically fucking gifted they are, could still cost them the fucking fight.
yeah.
Where no, well, a little shade to wrestling, like, hey, it's a work. If you're having a little bit of an off night, your opponent's going to help put you over.
Facts. Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. Now I was just thinking about like people in the lower weight classes in, like, I mean, obviously Hamzat, like he was. I think Hamzat is like the biggest star coming out of the pandemic. Like that. I mean, that is like a blue chip can't miss prospect, you know. And he's cashing checks.
He's talking bad shit.
Fuck yeah, he is.
Hamzat, fucking Khabib's cousin. That's also
Said.
Like what Saeed. Yeah.
Actually, apparently same gym, same everything, no relation.
Well, no.
Supposedly,
there's Saeed Nurmagomedov, and then like one of his cousins is also fighting at one of the lower weight classes as well.
Over in Bellator, though, right? Or is he in the UFC?
Oh, I gotta Google it. But there's someone else like, or like his maybe not direct family member, but like who's also out of his gym trains with Khabib. Like those Dagestanis are coming. They are coming, which will be super fucked up in world political stuff if like we end up in a bigger conflict with Russia if those guys can't come back over to the States to fucking fight because of visa issues. That would be fucked up.
Oh yeah, you bring an interesting fucking point. That's oh god, and that was one of the things too with Khabib not being able to fight because his father couldn't get over and then eventually ended up dying during the pandemic. It was dude, that's you see as much right like how pro wrestling will mirror what's happening in the fucking known world, Iraq conflict, whatever, then we fucking send out the Iron Sheik and
and Sergeant Slaughter fucking
right. So whether UFC wanted to do it or not, but like doing this whole fucking Russian, the Federation, whatever the fuck. I mean, it's art imitating life in the best or worst way, depending on where you are.
Yeah, it's wild times. It is absolutely fucking wild times on that. I hope we don't end up in World War III, and I hope that the Russian fighters can keep coming over and fight.
Yeah, exactly. But if they come over to fight to kick our asses, like imagine like a whole mountain full of Habibs just fucking descend on the US. I don't know, man. Unless they hit Iowa where there's those badass wrestlers and shit like that, we might be fucked.
I mean, most of these guys aren't undefeated. They have losses on their records. Like, and at the end of the day, Khabib is the only guy who really ever ended on top.
Yeah, true.
And if he had stuck around, he would have taken a loss eventually. It's just time catches up with everybody.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And just so Abdul Manap was Habib's father, right?
Right.
The son is Habib. His cousins are Umar Nurmagomedov, Abu Bakr, and Usman Nurmagomedov. So right, and that's just within the family tree. That's not even including all of the the
rest of it. Well,
yeah.
Speaking of Khabib, the fact that like he's still involved in MMA as a coach and started his own fighting.
Yeah.
Fucking, that hell, he signed fucking Rashad Evans to Eagle FC.
Jesus Christ.
Like,
insert Tyron Woodley shit. Put it in and I mean it happened. I didn't even check to see who won that fight. I was so into Bellator actually this weekend. With Bader defending the title successfully, heavyweight title successfully, just makes like all types of like super fights in my head. But no, I mean, shout out to Habib for Eagle FC, where he fucking just like he completely shat on the fucking UFC. I don't think he's gonna be welcomed too kindly back in the enclave of the UFC. I mean, look.
I mean, he's still cornering people at UFC fights. So
you remember what that shit happened with Randy Couture and Ryan Couture?
But that was over fucking video game rights, and that was big money for the UFC. Where at this point, I'm sure Dana is still looking at Khabib like Eagle FC is a fucking farm league for the UFC. The UFC isn't talking shit about KSW or any other like foreign promotions. And
Fight Night Global.
Right. They keep as long as it's not M1, because they're just pissed off at Fedor.
Yeah.
They look at all these other European promotions, Cage Warriors, as basically a farm system for the UFC. So until Eagle FC is to the statue of one,
right,
in the foreign markets, I don't think the UFC is going to care much.
That's true. I don't know.
Couture was just fucking ego about him bailing to go try to fight Fedor and be at EAU MMA.
That game was so fucking underrated, except for the fucking punching controls. That was weird.
But I didn't care for the submission controls in that game.
That's true. But it ended up in the fucking UFC EA games, which is wild.
I know. Well, but I don't play anything past UFC 2, so.
Okay. Good on you. But
I was in the UFC 4 beta, and I was just like, guess I'm gonna keep playing too. THQ, why did you have to go under? You made the best wrestling games and you made the best MMA games.
That's facts. Yeah, THQ and then Utes too. Like that's that was a partnership made in heaven.
Like even at years after I watched pro wrestling, I will still play. Like every once in a while will still fire up my Xbox 360 to play SmackDown vs. Raw 2008.
Yeah, but that was actually, I think it was before. It was like, I want to say it was like WWE 17. That was the last like fucking balls out the wall. Like you had Anarchy, where you had an alternative. Like, what if WCW had won the fucking war and shit like that? Like, this storyline aspect of 2K17 was fucking amazing, or it might have been 13. It's whatever that. It's Randy Orton on the cover. Whatever that fucking game was.
I tried to play some of the 2K games once, and the first time I played one, it's like, oh, I went through, because I'm all about like doing a creative fighter and creating intros in those games. Like, that's what I am there for. I really give a fuck at all about who's on the existing roster. I am all about just making ridiculous creative fighters. And me and my buddy went through all the fucking thing to make our intros, our fighters, and like went to do a match, and like it skipped the fucking intro. I just spent hours making this fucking thing.
Wow.
Fuck this game. And that is why SmackDown vs. Raw 08 is amazing. Because not only can you create the whole fucking intro, you could install MP3s on the hard drive of the Xbox and have your own custom music coming out. Yeah. Now I got a question for you, Woods.
Okay.
If you were going to the ring, what's your walkout music?
I for a time was Chicken Foot's Oh Yeah. Okay. Nah, and then also there was a weird Western character that I kind of wanted to do, and to come out to Stevie Ray Vaughan's Scuttlebutton. It's weird, whatever. But then I've been like, I've been influenced by like I think his name is Shane Strickland, because I get his real name and fucking WWE name all fucked up. I think he was like Swerve Scott in NXT, but his real name is Shane Strickland. He actually, pre his WWE run, came out to Shaka Khan's Ain't Nobody, right? So I almost want to feel like if I can make people sing Brenda Russell's Piano in the Dark, that'd be the one. That'd be the one, Billy Gunn.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
What would be yours?
Traditionally, in most of those games, when I would make myself as a wrestler, is Prong's Rude Awakening. Because like I always styled myself, like my character was like full on old school ECW, like jorts, fucking tear off shirt, fucking knee pads, boots, kendo stick in a lot of fucking cases. Like if that was a prop option that you could walk out to the ring with.
You could thank fucking Sandman for that.
Right, exactly. Or just Incredible at one point.
Yeah, that too. I don't know.
He was always credited with stealing the Sandman's kendo stick, but he did rock it for a long time there.
That is true. Now that you're like the Impact players, it's all coming back to me. That shit is Celine Dion.
ECW mark.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. So, who's your favorite ECW wrestler?
ECW era the Dudleys, full on heel Dudleys, like full on heel Dudley boys. Like you can't fuck with. I have never seen anyone get that kind of heat before they became cartoons of themselves in the WWE.
Yeah, no, you're right. Oh fuck! I mean, you see what fucking Bubba Ray's fucking tweeting at fucking Moxley and kind of shitting on his rehab and shit like that. He's still healing it up. That fucking guy. He's still healing it up. Somebody even said, I think Moxley's wife was like, "There's a reason." I can't remember who fucking put out the tweet. It was just like, "There's a reason why everyone fucking loves Devon and hates Bubba Ray." And I was like, "Yeah, fuck, dude. I will always be a Taz mark. Yeah, a short fat fuck that dump people on his head. On their heads.
Taz was also just so fucking intense. Walking out with that fucking towel. Just, I remember it's got to be Heatwave 99 where he chokes out Tajiri with the barbed wire like on the ramp.
Yes!
That was, one of my other like 08 created fighters just does Taz's walkout. Like,
fuck yes.
Set it to Demon Burger's cover of Burn in Hell, and then comes out to like no editing to the animation, whatever, just Taz's walkout.
Yeah. Fuck.
Just so, like even in an animated form was just so intense, just like fucking standing on the ropes with the towels. Another person that was criminally used poorly in the WWE. And that's, I think, part of the reason I stopped caring about the WWE products. Like, you took these amazing workers from ECW and then just, like, shoestring them or gave them just fucking horrible fucking gimmicks. The only service they ever did for fucking Taz was allowed him to end Angle's undefeated streak. That is the only thing they did for fucking Taz. But otherwise, he wasn't big enough for the WWE, no matter how fucking gifted he was, even though he was throwing around fucking Mike Awesome a couple weeks beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Taz. Hell, I love just to love how much of a maniac Sabu was.
Mike Awesome, dude. That's a fucking guy that, he wasn't like fucking Horace, in the NWO, who was, like fucking Mike Austin was Hogan's cousin, I want to say he was, and didn't use it at all. Horace did. Horace, like, I'm Hogan's nephew. Give me that fucking big ass contract, Uncle Eric. But like, yeah, fucking Mike Austin was just, pardon the pun, but awesome.
I just wish he had gotten rid of the fucking mullet. Like, it was so hard to take seriously with the fucking mullet.
But when he like the spot where he would do that flying clothesline, the mullet would fly in the wind. Which, when he fucking cut the mullet, it didn't have the same effects.
True.
That's where actually the mullet worked.
He could have just had long hair. He didn't have to rock the mullet.
Yeah, I guess so.
I know I'm literally nitpicking wrestlers from 20 years ago's style.
But... Oh, no. I have a weird thing about Chris Masters / Drew McIntyre / who's the other one? Bobby Roode. They have a weird head proportion to body ratio. And as a fat guy, I shouldn't care because I'm fat, whatever the fuck. But yeah, it's like Drew McIntyre's head is like bigger than his body. Like, he should be 40 pounds heavier and more muscle mass to fit that big ass 10-gallon head. I don't know. And then like with Masters and Rude, they just have weird long torsos. But that actually, in Rude's case, makes his spine busters look awesome because he can get the same amount of torque that Arn Anderson has. And to me, Arn Anderson, I don't care what the fuck you say, he's got the best spine buster in the business because he's fucking boat legged. Like he's boat legged, so he can fucking get that extra torque that others can't because of that. And the same thing with Harley Race. Harley Race was boat legged and he fucking was left handed. So he threw the fucking the knee drop. Dude, that looked like it fucking murdered a motherfucker. You talk to me about Harley Race, like I will fucking you'll be dead naked in the dirt. Like I'm a huge Harley Race arc, and I actually met him back in 2011 at Russell Reunion when they were still doing that, and I had his book, and then I had an NWA title replica when they were still selling them, and I read in the book that he shit on Dusty Rhodes for being at I think it was like the Orange Bowl. They had a fucking match in like 78 or whatever, and Dusty fucking wore earrings, and it's like, and he yanked it out of fucking Dusty's ear in the middle of the fucking Orange Bowl. And I was like, oh shit, I've got earrings or whatever. And I almost attempted to fucking take it out. And he's like, leave it in, kid. And we take the picture. So yeah. Fucking Harley Race is a man, dude. I've got
I'm sure him tearing out those earrings was just fucking cheap heat.
That too. Yeah, Dusty in Florida, Eddie Graham territory. Yeah, it was in retrospect. Oh, fuck it. It's still real to me, damn it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to crush that for you. I'm sorry, my bad.
Shit. I was
breaking kayfabe for you. Fuck.
Yeah, I was like literally like I paid the fucking picture for Harley Race, and I'm still like, maybe I shouldn't have these on.
You're such a mark. You're like, this man's gonna assault me in real life. He's gonna commit a crime because I'm wearing earrings.
Hey, fucking tell that to Hulk Hogan in the fucking bathroom stall. Made Hogan piss himself in a bathroom stall. Like you're fucking feet away from a fucking urinal, and you made Harley Race slapping you in the fucking back makes you piss your pants. I'm just saying. Harley Race is a fucking man.
He's probably on some diuretics. Allegedly. Don't sue me, Hogan. I know you like to sue people, and I have less money than Gawker, so.
Okay, there's a Netflix documentary where we're not talking out of school. It's the whole fucking thing. Fuck Hulk Hogan is what I'm saying. But one thing we shouldn't fuck around with is your podcast. And now we drink. Obviously, you let the people know where they can find it and all of the social medias attached to it, which I put in the description of where you're watching this right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and what have you. It's down here, but I've said it once before, but it bears repeating. Matt, take it away, my man.
All right. Well, you can always check out And Now We Drink at andnowwedrink.com, at And Now We Drink _ on Instagram, and Now We Drink on Twitter. It is available literally anywhere you get podcasts. Spotify, Apple. Well, don't go to SoundCloud, but anywhere else you get fucking podcasts. We have a YouTube channel where I am constantly uploading video content clips. Come check that out at youtube.com/andnowwedrink. If you want to give me money, I like money. I have a Patreon at patreon.com/Matt Slayer, where it is a lot of exclusive And Now We Drink content. My other exclusive weird musings. I am a content creator on top of doing this podcast, so I make little stupid videos here and there. I upload those, just my thoughts on things. We have a thriving Twitch community at twitch.tv/MattFandSlayer. We have a Discord under my Twitch branding, which is called You Laugh We Die. Come check that out in the Discord. We play fucking games with the community on Thursdays. If you like Among Us, we play a similar game on Thursdays called Goose Goose Duck. If you join the community, come play with us. It's fun. You can murder me. I know you want to after this interview. Come murder me.
I don't know. I feel like Elmira. I just want to love you and hug you and squeeze you and take your eyes pop out because you're just that guy. You're just absolutely awesome, which I absolutely think. Again, we mentioned him before, your good brother Eddie Torres of the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast, also a guy that you're trying to cancel, one Raynon Bozio,
and you should help cancel him.
Okay, I think
anwd.net/merch. You can get your own very own cancel Raynon Bozio shirt, if I could say his fucking name. See, I can't even say his name. That's how bad I want to cancel him.
Get
your own cancel Raynon shirt.
Yeah, Which again, Rain and Lucio actually wore to the night that we all met at New Japan.
Oh no, Eddie was wearing it. Eddie was wearing.
Oh, was Eddie wearing it? Okay, there you go. I know people's faces. What they were wearing, it kind of alludes.
Yeah, no. We got a good picture of Rain next to Eddie while Eddie's wearing the shirt like this, like just.
But they, canceled or not, those are good brothers. I'd like to thank them for putting us together.
Hell
but
yeah.
also, before we go, obviously you've done a lot of things in a lot of different places, but you wouldn't be here with the community that has supported you. So take as long as you need. Let's get some shout outs out of the way.
I got to shout out people? Shit.
Yeah.
Well, first I'd like to shout out my parents for having unprotected sex.
That's a good one.
Appreciate that. Appreciate whatever doctor pulled me out of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say I want to shout out my high school teachers for not having me arrested. I'd like to shout out the first woman I fucked. Yeah, I appreciate you for that. We probably shouldn't have done it. You were someone else's girlfriend, but it happened. In more modern times, I would like to shout out Eddie Torres from the Rock and Roll Beer Guy podcast, one of my regular collaborators on other projects. Rain and Bozio, who I will get canceled. I will fucking get him canceled if it's the last thing I do. Hashtag 2022 goals. I'd like to shout out, my boy Crow Garrett, professional magician. Great all-around dude. Let's also shout out Honey House PR, who regularly sends me clients and helps me out with press releases for And Now We Drink, which you can find those press releases on AVN or any other adult forum. I would like to, shout out Astroglide Warming Lube. It's good stuff. Makes the night very good. I would like to shout out Plan B pills. I wouldn't want to think where I am without them. Let's see. Hopefully in 2023, we can go back to hashtag no mask, no condoms. I'd like to shout that out. Start that campaign back up. Yeah, I think that'll do it. Is that good?
That's perfect. I
think I just broke Woods.
It's fucking perfect. Again, that's what you're going to be getting from Matt Slayer and Now We Drink podcast. All of the links are right here in the description below. So go ahead and check it out. Again.
Also, invest in earbuds, because if you listen to my show and your job's not cool, you will be fired.
That's true. We should put links. You should have And Now We Drink set of earbuds. Product placement. There you go.
There we go. It's happening.
Fuck yes. We'll get somebody in a land far away that'll probably end up in a container in Long Beach for 6 months anyway.
Whoa! We're gonna put people in containers. I'm not down with that. I'm not down with that plan. Whoa! What are you signing me up here for? No.
Hey,
no.
Hey, that was one of the things that I got into in the pandemic, is watching container home builds and shit like that. So people of affluent means actually get into the fucking containers. So I'm just saying.
And then live on a boat off the coast of Long Beach? That's weird.
That's
so weird. Like, oh my God, that is like a weird survivalist. I know we were wrapping the show, but that's like a weird survivalist, like post-apocalyptic future. Like, it's a container boat of affluent people in container homes on the container boat.
Have you seen those motherfuckers in Montana that go 80 fucking million feet under and have like a mansion floor to floor just dug like a fucking butt plug in the Earth's core? It's weird. It's so weird.
I mean, pretty much everything with Montana is weird. Have you ever been?
I won't. Sorry, Montana. You're not getting me. No.
I've spent some time in Montana. It's a weird place.
I do concur. That's it. But again, And Now We Drink, Matt Slayer. All the links are down here in the description. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Matt, for joining us here. And if you haven't already done so, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Matt Slayer, you're subscribed to the podcast, aren't you?
I mean, I just unsubscribed right now while we're in the middle of this. Like, the guest you have on right now sucks, so I decided I couldn't continue supporting the show.
I disagree. But in any event, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast and don't unsubscribe like Matt did. Please don't. It was like definitely.
I'll be back. It's fine.
Okay.
I'm just a little moody and like, it's just like he started talking about Rogan and I wanted to unsubscribe. Like, who the fuck does this guy think he is?
Fuck. I knocked down my whole setup. Oh fuck. Oh god. But again,
when you do things with me live, you break stuff.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's Limp Bizkit. That's actually what I'm piping through my audio streams. Is break stuff by Limp Bizkit. All-time classic.
As we like to say at the end of it, now we drink up, motherfuckers.
Drink up, motherfuckers. Subscribe to both the podcasts if you don't believe me, don't believe Matt. Well, here's Zeta Zhang to convince you.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe to According to Woods YouTube.